It started with a spark of curiosity, as so many pivotal moments in history often do. The humans were a newly discovered species, practically infants in the grand theater of the galaxy. When the Zerdan Collective first detected their crude attempts at space travel, the initial reaction was bemusement. Their technology was primitive, their methods inefficient, and their spacecraft seemed held together by equal parts ingenuity and desperation. I was assigned to observe them, an unassuming historian charged with chronicling the stories of lesser-known species. Humanity intrigued me in ways I didn't expect. They had bypassed so many natural stages of galactic protocol. Most species, upon achieving rudimentary space travel, first refined their technology, carefully expanded their reach, and made tentative contact with others. Humans, however, had stumbled into the stars as though they had nothing to lose. Our first encounter was emblematic of everything I would come to learn about them. Their vessel had suffered a catastrophic malfunction near one of our observation posts, a sleek station hidden within the asteroid belt of their solar system. Their ship, an amalgamation of mismatched metals and questionable engineering, was venting plasma. Any other species would have panicked, sent distress signals, or abandoned ship, not the humans. They were already working on repairs when I initiated contact. Through the translator, I introduced myself with the standard greeting of the Zernan Collective: measured, formal, respectful. "Greetings from the Zernan Collective," I said, projecting an air of calm authority. The human captain, a wiry individual with unruly hair and a confident grin that seemed wildly out of place given the situation, did not react as expected. "Hey there," he said brightly, wiping grease from his hands. "Got a wrench? We're kind of in a bind here." I was taken aback. There was no fear in his tone, no awe or reverence at encountering a species far beyond his own, just an easygoing charm that, against all logic, put me at ease. The rest of his crew seemed similarly unfazed. They treated the situation not as a catastrophe, but as an inconvenience, one they were determined to solve with whatever they had on hand. I watched, fascinated, as they worked together with a level of camaraderie that bordered on chaotic. They argued, joked, and improvised, but somehow they made progress. When I offered assistance, the captain hesitated for only a moment before grinning again. "Sure, we'll take the help, but don't do too much. We've got to learn how to fix this ourselves." That response struck me deeply. It wasn't arrogance. It was an unyielding determination to grow through adversity. They didn't just want to survive. They wanted to understand, to improve, to adapt. By the time their ship was operational again, I was utterly captivated. They were unlike any species I had encountered before. Their ingenuity was matched only by their audacity, and their approach to the unknown was not cautious reverence, but an almost reckless curiosity. As they drifted away, their patched-together ship glowing faintly against the backdrop of stars, I realized that humanity wasn't just another species to observe. They were a story waiting to be told, one that I felt compelled to unravel. The humans had made their first impression, and it was one I would never forget. Humanity's audacity was both exhilarating and bewildering to witness. As I delved deeper into my study of them, I quickly realized that the humans lacked any sense of the decorum or hierarchy that structured the galaxy's more established civilizations. To the Zernan mind, the universe operated on a series of finely tuned principles: order, protocol, and efficiency. Humanity seemed to operate on none of these. They were loud, chaotic, and endlessly curious, challenging everything they encountered as if questioning was encoded in their very DNA. When I first arrived on Earth, I was prepared for a culture of confusion. Their transmissions and broadcasts had painted a picture of a fractured species, a world divided by borders, ideologies, and languages. Yet what I found was far more complex. Humans thrived on their differences. They didn't see contradiction as a flaw, but as a source of strength, something to be argued over, debated, and ultimately celebrated. The human who became my primary guide was Kara, a linguist with a sharp wit and an endless supply of questions. "You want to understand us?" she said during our first meeting, leaning back in her chair with a bemused smile. "Good luck with that. We don't even understand ourselves half the time." She wasn't wrong. Humanity was a paradox. They could be both compassionate and cruel, innovative and destructive, daring and cautious. Their contradictions made them unpredictable, which, I would learn, was their greatest strength. Where other species sought to eliminate uncertainty, humans embraced it. They thrived in chaos, using it as a forge to temper their ideas and push the boundaries of what was possible. Their history was riddled with examples of this audacity. Kara took great pride in recounting tales of early explorers who ventured into uncharted waters with nothing but the stars to guide them, of revolutionaries who stood against impossible odds to demand freedom, and of scientists who defied the limits of understanding to bring humanity into the age of spaceflight. But what struck me most was their relentless curiosity. Humans questioned everything, even when the answers were dangerous or unknowable. During one conversation, Kara pointed to the sky and said, "Do you know why we went to the moon?" I expected her to cite scientific advancement or strategic necessity, but instead she shrugged and said, "Because it was there. We saw it, and we had to know what it felt like to stand on it." This mindset extended to their relationships with one another. Humans argued incessantly about politics, philosophy, art, and even the nature of existence itself. But beneath the surface of their debates was a shared belief in progress. They understood, perhaps instinctively, that growth came from conflict, from the friction of opposing ideas grinding against one another until something new emerged. Their capacity for questioning was not limited to their own species. When Kara learned of the Zernan Collective's vast database of knowledge, she was both impressed and skeptical. "You've cataloged so much," she said, her brow furrowed in thought. "But do you ever wonder if there's more out there? Or do you think you've already got all the answers?" It was a question I couldn't easily answer, and I think she knew that. Humanity's audacity wasn't just in their actions, but in their willingness to challenge even the most established truths. They didn't merely seek to understand the universe, they sought to reshape it, to leave their mark on something far greater than themselves. As I observed their world and their ways, I found myself increasingly drawn to their chaos. It was intoxicating, this unrelenting drive to push boundaries and defy limitations. Humanity wasn't just a species, it was an idea, one that seemed to pulse with life and possibility. And in their audacity, I began to see a reflection of something the galaxy had long forgotten, the courage to dream beyond what is known. The humans were builders, but not in the traditional sense. To call their creations mere constructions would be to miss the deeper truth of what they represented. Humanity did not build out of necessity alone. They built out of a profound, almost spiritual need to leave a mark on the universe. Every structure, every machine, every work of art was a declaration. We were here. We mattered. Their planet was a testament to this drive. From the moment I set foot on Earth, I was struck by the sheer variety of their creations. Massive skyscrapers pierced the clouds, standing defiant against the forces of nature. Bridges spanned impossible distances, linking lands that once stood apart. In the deserts, cities rose like mirages, shimmering with light and life. But these were not just feats of engineering. They were symbols of humanity's unyielding ambition. Kara, ever the patient guide, explained the significance of these constructions with a mixture of pride and humor. "See that tower?" she said, pointing to a gleaming structure that seemed to scrape the very edge of the atmosphere. "We built that because someone said it couldn't be done. And see that one over there? We built it because the first one wasn't tall enough." It wasn't just about height or size, though. Humanity's creations had a distinct personality. a sense of individuality that was absent in the sterile, utilitarian designs of many galactic civilizations. Their architecture was not bound by uniformity. Gothic cathedrals with soaring spires stood alongside modernist cubes of glass and steel. Ancient stone bridges, weathered by time, coexisted with hyper-advanced maglev systems. Each structure told a story, not just of its purpose, but of the people who had built it. But it wasn't just the physical structures that left me in awe. It was their machines. Their spacecraft, though far less advanced than those of the Zernan Collective, had a rugged charm. They weren't sleek or efficient, but they worked, often in ways that defied logic. One of their engineers described their philosophy to me in simple terms. We build it to get the job done, and then we figure out how to make it better. Their ingenuity was astounding. I observed them patching a malfunctioning reactor with materials that by all rights should have been inadequate, and yet it worked. Where others saw limitations, humans saw opportunities to innovate. Their resourcefulness was born not from abundance but from scarcity, a necessity that had forced them to find creative solutions to problems that would have stymied more advanced civilizations. What fascinated me most, however, was their art. Humanity didn't just build to survive or to thrive, they built to express themselves. Their sculptures, paintings, and music conveyed emotions so raw and profound that even a Zernan, with our logical minds, could feel their impact. Kara took me to a museum filled with works that spanned centuries, from ancient cave paintings to digital masterpieces created by artificial intelligence. "Why do you create these things?" I asked her, genuinely puzzled. She smiled, her eyes alight with a warmth I couldn't fully understand. "Because we can. Because it reminds us of what it means to be human. Sometimes it's not about survival, it's about making something beautiful, something that lasts." I began to see that their need to build was not confined to the physical. They built connections, communities, and stories. They built dreams that stretched beyond the stars. For humans, creation was an act of defiance against the impermanence of existence. They knew, perhaps better than any species I had encountered, that nothing lasts forever. And yet, they built anyway, determined to leave behind something that would endure. As I watched them work, I realized that their constructions, flawed and chaotic as they often were, contained a beauty that no perfection could match. They were not merely buildings or machines. They were expressions of hope, of resilience, of humanity's unshakable belief that the universe could be shaped by their hands. In their creations, I saw not just what they were, but what they aspired to become. And that, perhaps, was the most extraordinary thing of all. Humanity's history was drenched in blood. Their wars were not just numerous, but shockingly frequent, often over reasons that seemed incomprehensible to an outsider. Resources, ideologies, territories, religions. Humans could find conflict in nearly anything. To the Zernan Collective, which prided itself on resolving disputes through meticulous diplomacy and logic, humanity's propensity for violence was baffling, even repugnant. And yet, the more I studied them, the more I came to understand that their relationship with war was as complicated and paradoxical as the species itself. I learned of their wars from both their historical records and their stories, which they never seemed to tire of telling. Kara often spoke of Earth's past with a somberness that I rarely saw in her otherwise spirited demeanor. "War is ugly," she admitted one evening as we walked through the ruins of a memorial dedicated to something they called the First World War. "It's brutal and senseless, but sometimes it's also the only way we know how to fight for what matters." The memorial was hauntingly beautiful, a stark contrast to the horrors it represented. Towering stone arches were etched with names, millions of them, each one a life lost in a conflict that spanned continents. And yet, even in the midst of such devastation, humanity had found a way to honor the fallen, to remember the cost of their ambitions and their failures. What struck me most about their history of war was not the violence itself, but their capacity to learn from it. Humans had an uncanny ability to adapt, to take the ashes of destruction and build something new. Entire civilizations had risen from the rubble of war, stronger and more united than before. It was as though conflict, for all its horrors, acted as a crucible, forging resilience and innovation. Kara showed me how humanity had turned their wartime technologies into tools for peace. Rockets designed to deliver destruction had become the means of exploring the stars. Systems of communication born out of necessity during global conflicts now connected the entire planet, allowing people to share ideas and stories at the speed of light. Even the medicine developed for soldiers on the battlefield had saved countless civilian lives in the centuries that followed. Their duality fascinated me. On one hand, humanity was capable of immense cruelty, inflicting suffering on each other in ways that seemed almost unimaginable. On the other hand, they were equally capable of acts of profound compassion. In the aftermath of their wars, they had a remarkable ability to forgive, to rebuild, and to seek reconciliation. One particular story stood out to me. Kara told me about a group of humans who, after a devastating war, had come together to form an organization dedicated to peace. The United Nations, she explained, wasn't perfect, but it was a start. We learned bit by bit that the only way to truly move forward was to do it together. Their willingness to strive for peace, even after witnessing the worst of what they were capable of, was perhaps the most human trait of all. Where other species might have succumbed to despair or sought to suppress their violent tendencies entirely, humanity embraced the complexity of their nature. They didn't try to deny their capacity for destruction. They acknowledged it, wrestled with it, and found ways to channel it into something constructive. I saw this duality firsthand when I visited one of their colonies on Proxima b. The settlers, descendants of rival factions that had once fought bitterly on Earth, now worked side by side to terraform the planet. "We fought enough," one of them told me as they tended to a newly planted field. "It's time when we learned." That sentiment stayed with me. Humanity's relationship with war was not one of glorification or acceptance, but of understanding. They recognized it as a part of their history, a shadow that would always linger, but they refused to let it define their future. In their ability to rise from the ashes, to learn from their mistakes, and to strive for a better tomorrow, I saw a glimmer of something extraordinary. Humanity was not perfect. They never claimed to be, but they were resilient. They were dreamers, builders, and storytellers, determined to find meaning even in their darkest moments. And in that determination, they found hope. If there was one word that encapsulated humanity's essence, it was connection. Despite their wars, despite their divisions, humans possessed an innate desire to reach out to one another. It was in their nature to build bridges, both literal and metaphorical, spanning the gaps between individuals, cultures, and now, the stars. I saw this drive manifest in countless ways, from their technology to their art to the way they approached relationships. Connection was not just something they sought, it was something they needed. I first noticed this trait in their use of technology. While many galactic civilizations created tools to optimize efficiency or expand their influence, humans developed technology to communicate. Their earliest experiments in radio waves, satellites, and digital networks were all driven by a singular goal: to talk to one another. By the time they reached the stars, they had created a web of communication so vast that nearly every human on their homeworld could share thoughts and ideas in an instant. Kara was particularly passionate about this. She called it the human tapestry, a term that described the interconnectedness of their stories, cultures, and experiences. "We've always wanted to understand each other," she said one evening as she scrolled through a digital archive of Earth's history. "Even when we don't agree, or especially when we don't agree, we keep talking. It's messy, but it's how we grow." Their obsession with connection extended beyond their own species. When the Zernan Collective made first contact with humanity, I had expected hesitation or fear. Instead, I was met with an overwhelming eagerness to learn, to share, to connect. They were fascinated by us, not just our technology, but our culture, our history, our way of thinking. They wanted to know everything, not out of a desire for power, but out of genuine curiosity. Humans had a remarkable ability to empathize with others, even those who were entirely different from themselves. I saw it in the way they treated their animals, many of which they considered companions or even family members. I saw it in the way they mourned the loss of species on their planet, creatures they would never see again but still honored with memorials. And I saw it in the way they approached us, the Zernans, with a mixture of awe and warmth, as if meeting an old friend rather than an alien civilization. Their art was perhaps the most profound expression of this need for connection. Kara took me to a performance once. A symphony played in a grand hall filled with humans from every corner of their world. The music was hauntingly beautiful, a blend of instruments and voices that seemed to speak to something primal and universal. As the final notes faded, the audience erupted into applause, not just for the performers, but for the shared experience they had all been a part of. "That's what we do," Kara said afterward, her voice filled with quiet pride. "We create things that bring us together. Even when it feels like the world is falling apart, we find ways to connect." I began to see that their need for connection was not a weakness but a strength. It was what allowed them to overcome their differences, to rebuild after disasters, and to form alliances that spanned the stars. Unlike many civilizations, which valued independence above all else, humanity understood that their greatest achievements came from working together. This was most evident in their colonization efforts. On Proxima b, a world still in the early stages of terraforming, humans from vastly different backgrounds worked side by side, their shared goal binding them together. I watched as they celebrated small victories, an irrigated field, a functioning power grid, with laughter and joy, their differences forgotten in the face of their shared struggle. In humanity, I saw a species that was far from perfect. They quarreled, they stumbled, and they made mistakes, but they always reached out, always sought to bridge the gaps between them. It was this relentless drive to connect, to understand, to be understood, that made them unique. It was what made them human. And in their connections, they found not just strength but purpose, a reason to keep pushing forward, no matter how daunting the journey ahead. As I continued to observe humanity, I began to notice something even more profound than their drive for connection or their resilience in the face of adversity. It was their relationship with the unknown. Unlike many species in the galaxy who approached uncertainty with caution or even fear, humanity embraced it with open arms. The unknown wasn't something to be avoided or controlled. It was something to be explored, challenged, and ultimately conquered. This trait was most evident in their boundless curiosity. Humans were never content to stay within the confines of what they knew. Their entire history was a chronicle of pushing boundaries, from the first steps out of Africa to their initial ventures into space. They had an almost reckless enthusiasm for discovery, a willingness to risk everything just to answer the question, "What's out there?" I saw this firsthand during a mission to one of their outermost colonies. The planet, a harsh and desolate world with a surface battered by relentless storms, had been deemed uninhabitable by most galactic standards. And yet, humans had not only established a presence there but thrived. Their settlement was a patchwork of ingenuity. Buildings constructed from materials scavenged from their surroundings, energy harnessed from the volatile atmosphere, and crops grown in soil that had once been barren. Kara accompanied me on this journey, her enthusiasm undiminished by the planet's inhospitable nature. "It's not about making it easy," she explained as we trudged through the windswept terrain. "It's about proving we can do it. Every time we step into the unknown, we learn something new about ourselves, and that's worth the risk." Their explorers were the embodiment of this mindset. Unlike other species which relied heavily on automated systems or expendable probes, humanity insisted on sending people. They believed that the act of being there, of experiencing the unknown firsthand, was an essential part of discovery. Their astronauts and adventurers often spoke of the overview effect, a profound shift in perspective that came from seeing their homeworld as a fragile sphere in the vastness of space. But it wasn't just the physical unknown that humanity embraced, it was the intellectual and philosophical unknown as well. They questioned everything from the nature of existence to the origins of the universe. Their scientists and thinkers delved into mysteries that many species had long since deemed unsolvable, not out of a need for answers, but out of a sheer love of the pursuit. One evening, Kara showed me a human invention called a telescope, a device that allowed them to peer into the farthest reaches of their galaxy. As we gazed at the stars, she told me about the countless theories humanity had developed over the centuries, each one a stepping stone to a greater understanding. "We've never stopped looking up," she said, her voice filled with quiet awe. "Even when we didn't know what we were looking for, we kept searching. That's just who we are." She wrote, "Even when we didn't know what we were looking for, we kept searching. That's just who we are." Their art and literature also reflected this relationship with the unknown. I read their stories of heroes venturing into uncharted lands, of scientists unraveling the secrets of the cosmos, and of dreamers imagining futures that seemed impossible. These tales weren't just entertainment, they were expressions of humanity's collective spirit, a reminder that their greatest achievements came from their willingness to step into the darkness and find the light. What struck me most, however, was their acceptance of uncertainty. While other species often sought definitive answers, humans were comfortable with the idea that some questions might never be resolved. They didn't see this as a failure, but as an opportunity. To them, the unknown was not a barrier, but a horizon, always moving, always beckoning them forward. In their pursuit of the unknown, humanity revealed a courage that was both inspiring and humbling. They understood that discovery came with risks, that failure was inevitable, and that the journey might never end. And yet, they pressed on, driven by an unshakable belief that the act of exploring, of daring to ask, to seek, to wonder, was its own reward. It was in this fearless embrace of the unknown that I saw humanity's true potential. They were not just explorers of space or seekers of knowledge. They were pioneers of possibility, charting a course not just for themselves, but for all who would follow. In their audacity to face the unknown, they reminded the galaxy of what it truly meant to dream. The longer I spent with humanity, the more I began to understand that their true strength lay not in their technology, their ingenuity, or even their resilience. It was something deeper, something intangible yet undeniably powerful, their capacity to hope. Hope for humanity was not merely an emotion or a fleeting feeling. It was a force, a driving energy that shaped their actions, inspired their creations, and carried them forward even when the odds were insurmountable. This was most evident in their stories. Humans were natural storytellers, weaving narratives that captured their fears, dreams, and aspirations. Their tales were not always cheerful. Many were dark, tragic, even heartbreaking. But beneath the surface, there was always an undercurrent of hope. It wasn't the naive belief that everything would be fine, but a determined faith that even in the darkest moments, something better was possible. They wrote of heroes who stood against impossible odds, of civilizations that rebuilt after collapse, and of futures brighter than their present. Kara once told me that hope was humanity's greatest weapon. "It's what keeps us going," she said as we walked through a sprawling city on Earth, its streets alive with people of all ages and backgrounds. Hope isn't just about believing things will get better. It's about working to make them better. It's about refusing to give up, no matter how hard things get. I saw this refusal to give up in countless ways. On Earth, I visited communities that had been devastated by natural disasters only to rise again, stronger and more united. In the vastness of space, I observed human colonies that had faced famine, disease, and isolation, yet continued to persevere, driven by a shared vision of a better future. Their setbacks didn't break them. They inspired them to adapt, to innovate, and to try again. Their hope was contagious. Even I, a Zernan, found myself moved by their optimism, their belief that no matter how vast and indifferent the universe seemed, they could carve out a place within it. It wasn't arrogance, it was defiance. Humanity looked at the chaos and uncertainty of existence and declared, "We will make meaning out of this. We will create something beautiful." One moment that stayed with me was a ceremony held on Proxima b. The settlers, having faced years of hardship to terraform the barren planet, gathered to celebrate the first successful harvest. It was a simple event, marked by music, shared food, and laughter. But what struck me was the speech given by one of their leaders, an elderly woman who had been among the first to set foot on the planet. "We didn't come here because it was easy," she said, her voice strong despite her years. "We came here because we believed it could be done. And today, we've proved that belief wasn't misplaced. This is just the beginning. The universe is vast, and there's so much left to do. But if we can thrive here, we can thrive anywhere. Together, we can shape the stars." Her words resonated with me deeply. Humanity's hope wasn't just for themselves. It extended to everyone they encountered. They believed that their successes, their dreams, their triumphs could benefit not only their species but the galaxy as a whole. They didn't see themselves as conquerors or rulers. They saw themselves as participants in a larger story, one that included all forms of life. As I prepared to leave Earth, I realized that humanity had changed me. I had come to their world as an observer, curious about this strange, chaotic species. But I left as something more, a believer in their potential, in their vision, and in their unwavering hope. The galaxy was vast, filled with challenges and uncertainties that would test even the most advanced civilizations, but I knew, without a doubt, that humanity would face them head-on. They would stumble, they would fall, but they would always rise again, because that was who they were, a species of dreamers, builders, and storytellers, fueled by a hope that burned brighter than any star. And as I boarded my ship and took one last look at their blue and green world, I found myself whispering a silent wish. May your hope guide you, humanity. May it light the way for us all.